Good morning, DBS, Kyrie, and Vibes Radio. Stand by for a live broadcast from the office of the Prime Minister in Roseau. Today, November 10th, Friday. Stand by, we will commence in 60 seconds. Radio station, stand by, we will commence in 30 seconds. Radio station, stand by, we will start in 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and
to everyone and to all listeners, both here and abroad. It is my pleasure to come to you this morning with the Government of Dominica's daily press briefing. My name is Gloria Joseph, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Planning, Economic Development and Investment. And today we are here to talk to you or to continue our discourse with you on building standards for Dominica and what we at the Ministry of Planning are doing in preparation for this. On our panel today, we will have representatives of the Physical Planning Division, the UNDP, United Nations Development Program, and the EWB, that is the Engineers Without Borders. As we commence this morning, I would like to give you a little bit of insight into the work of the Physical Planning Division, so you will better understand what our role at present is in the scheme of things that is post-Hurricane Maria, as we've moved from relief level to recovery and reconstruction. The Physical Planning Division is an arm of the Ministry of Planning, Economic Development and Investment, and they are located on 3 Charles Avenue, Goodwill Road. Physical planning guides and regulates a country's physical development. Under the Physical Planning Act No. 5 of 2002, development is defined as the carrying out of building, engineering, mining, and other operations in, on, over, or under the land, any land in Dominica, the making of any material change in the use of building or land, or the subdivision of land. Development requires consent from the Physical Planning and Development Authority, otherwise known as the Physical Planning Division or the Planning Authority, and this consent is known as Physical Planning Permission. So that means everyone who is engaged in any type of development on the land, under the land, in the land, would need to secure permission from physical planning. Development requires that level of consent. Physical planning, therefore, is concerned with safeguarding the health, safety, and interest of the public as opposed to private interest. There are a variety of ways in which land can be used, but by controlling how it is used helps the country as a whole to achieve balanced development and also to protect natural resources. A little bit about the Act, the Physical Planning Act. The Act also confers the responsibility for administration onto the Physical Planning and Development Authority in the following ways: to guide the orderly and progressive development of land in both urban and rural areas, to preserve and improve the amenities thereof, for the grant of permission to develop land, and for other powers of control over the use of land, for the regulation of construction of buildings and related matters, to confer additional powers in respect to the acquisition and development of land, for planning purposes and for other matters as connected therewith. So, in setting out the framework for what we're doing at the Physical Planning Division, we are guided by the legislation, reference the Physical Planning Act of 2002. We're also guided by the building code, the OECS building code, and we have the building regulations, and from this we are deriving some standards that will guide continued construction. We are aware that the Hurricane Maria dealt severe devastation, a severe blow to the infrastructure of Dominica that includes housing, residential buildings, commercial buildings, and the like. And so it is incumbent on government to provide the necessary guidance and training that will help people in building back a resilient Dominica, a Dominica that is resilient, though not immune, but resilient to weather conditions and seismic activities. And so the division has been engaged in preparing those standards that are to be presented to the government, but we have a series of training interventions planned commencing next week. And so the focus of the discussion today, the press briefing today, is to inform you on the assessments that have been ongoing in terms of building damage and the training that we're planning to commence next week. So it gives me pleasure now to invite to the podium one of our panelists by the name of Massimiliano Tosi. He is a representative from the UNDP, and he's been working on the building damage assessments. So he'll tell you what his observations are and to let us know how we can deal with the damages that we've suffered in Dominica. Welcome, Mr. Tosi.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all the Dominicans that are with us today in this morning, and thank you very much to the government of Dominica for the great opportunity of being here this morning to talk about what we are doing in hand by hand with the Ministry of Housing to make this comprehensive building damage assessment that has already started in the island last week, and it is being done throughout the next 6 to 7 weeks, and that aims to have a clear view of what the Hurricane Maria made to the buildings in the island. So basically, I would also like to thank Engineers Without Borders, our partner. I would like to thank Microsoft, because this is an endeavor that we have commenced together with our partners. It is an exercise that we as UNDP have accompanied other governments to do in other post-disaster situations, such as, for example, Haiti, Nepal. And it is a very important exercise because it allows the government to have clear data on the damages that the hurricane and other kind of hazards has produced to the assets of the country. So the exercise was organized hand by hand with the Ministry of Housing. Currently we have more than 100 persons, mainly civil servants, that are going throughout the island, that are hitting the ground to assess all the buildings of the island of Dominica. They are organized into 27 teams, mainly composed by 3 persons each, and they are using a very innovative app that is provided by Microsoft, and they're using also a tablet that was provided by Microsoft to the government of Dominica through the UNDP. So basically the app allows the assessors to assess the level of damage that the building have at the level of the roof, at the level of the ceiling, at the level of the walls, at the level of the floors, but also to collect some very important demographic information that will allow in the next phase to the government of Dominica to plan evidence-based public policies that can better address the issue and the problems of housing in Dominica after Hurricane Maria. So far, the groups, the teams have worked hardly. I want to really thank and acknowledge the effort of all those assessors that are working out of their normal tasks under the sun, under heavy conditions. They're working with the rain, but they are hitting the ground and they're present throughout the whole island. So our thank goes to all of them. Without them, this effort would be really impossible, and we would not be able to build a more resilient Dominica after the disaster. We have so far worked 6 days on the field. We have collected approximately 4,000 surveys. All the surveys are uploaded on a daily basis on the Microsoft Cloud, so it's very safe and secure. There is no possibility that data can be lost or that assessments need to be done twice. So we are very efficient on this job. The job is very effective, and the data, I want to stress once again, is fundamental data for planning purposes with regards to housing and other post-disaster recovery public policy. So far, what I can say is that we have an amount of about 1/3 of the survey reflect that no damage has occurred to the housing, but we have a lot of surveys, the 2/3 of the surveys, that say that the damage has been extensive, has been important. We have a high number of houses that have been tagged as red, which means that basically they cannot be, they shouldn't be inhabited any longer. Some others have been tagged as orange, and a smaller number has been tagged as yellow. So basically, red is the most relevant damage, then comes orange, then comes yellow, and finally, if no damage or just slight damage has occurred to a building, we tag it as green. It is also important to stress that all the assessors that are on the field to do the exercise, they have been trained by UNDP, by the Ministry of Housing, and together with engineers from Engineers Without Borders, so that we can ensure that all the data that are gathered are consistent, so that basically if two persons look at the same building, they will be able to tag the same color for the same building. This is very important because if we want to make evidence-based public policy, we have to be sure that the data that we gather from the field are consistent and really reflect the reality of the damage that the building has suffered from Hurricane Maria. I want to also stress that the 3-day training saw the assessors to be present all the day. They did an incredible job, and we would like also to thank the people, the Dominican people, that are allowing the assessor to access their properties, to access their houses, to do the exercise. Without this permission, it would be very difficult for our assessors to clearly do the job and correctly assess the building. So many thanks to all the Dominicans, and once again I would like to ask you please to help our assessors in doing their job. Allow them to assess your property. This is going to be very important information that we are collecting. Also, I just want to emphasize that it is not an insurance-related assessment, so it is just done for the purpose of providing good, reliable data to the government for planning public policy in housing. Thank you very much.
Okay, so yeah, you have it from Massimiliano Tosi explaining to you the efforts that government has been putting towards conducting the building assessments, and this is very critical. And as I listened to, and you would have listened to Tosi, you would have heard him saying over and over, evidence-based public policy. And this is critical because so many people may be asking or wondering, what is government doing? Why aren't they moving quicker with fixing the roofs, with repairing the buildings? What's going on? What's going on? But you would understand that in order to do a proper job, in order to do a job that is sustainable for time to come, it is important that the necessary studies be conducted. Data is essential. Planning in the absence of data, and that is reliable data, is planning that is futile. It's not good planning. So we've been collecting the data, and I really want to thank, on behalf of the government, the UNDP, for their great effort responding to us in very, very quick time, immediately in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. And this is just one of the aspects of the work that they've been doing with us in conducting the housing damage assessments. But there's a lot more going on that the UNDP and many of our development partners are undertaking at this point in time. Now, we're moving into the area of training and the preparation for training. One may say that the persons who are actually engaged in construction, haven't they been trained? Aren't they experienced? Haven't they done this for a number of years? The answers to all may be yes. However, as we live and as we evolve, there are changes. And we all need to be open to new information, new ways of doing things, fresh knowledge, fresh studies that have been conducted, research, etc. And the research are very instructive and informative. Hence, you would have heard that the Ministry of Housing is one of our key partners in planning, has been engaged in conducting some level of training that is ongoing this week and next week. However, we too at the Ministry of Planning are engaging or embarking on a training intervention with the Engineers Without Borders. And the training would be a certification level training where builders and contractors would be exposed to the standards, to the codes, to resilient ways of constructing, reconstructing, repairing homes, particularly at this point, residential structures. And so the Physical Planning Division has been quite entrenched in preparing this training. And so with us this morning on the press briefing is Miss Naomi Dorival, who is involved with work at the Physical Planning Development in terms of development control. And she will be sharing with us some of the logistics regarding the training. And so we'd like everyone out there to be attentive. You may know a builder who may not have access to the information being disseminated now, and it would be important for you to transfer that information as to what we are planning to undertake from next week in certifying persons in resilient building practices. Naomi.
Good morning. The training is going to be based on a document that was developed with Engineers Without Borders in collaboration with the UNDP and Physical Planning Division. That is a guide to the housing standards that we want to have in Dominica. We have set 6 training sessions, 2-day training sessions, and they will be through various communities throughout the island. The first is scheduled for Roseau, and that will be at the Dominica Public Service Union from the 13th to the 14th of November. We also have a training scheduled for Portsmouth on the 16th and 17th of November. The location of the Portsmouth training has yet to be determined. We will follow up with that information. We are also training in Marigot on the 20th and 21st of November, Grand Bay on the 24th and 23rd of November, St. Joseph on the 27th and 28th of November, and La Plaine on the 30th of November and the 1st of December. The locations for Portsmouth, Marigot, Grand Bay, St. Joseph, and La Plaine have not been confirmed as yet, but we will get that information to you once it is available. One could register. We have registration forms. They will be at the security booth at the financial center. We are also placing registration forms at the Dominica Builders and Contractors Association, E.H. Charles, Maxroy Trading, and M&R Trading. We intend to have registration forms available at the various credit unions throughout the island as well. We are also in collaboration with the Dominica Coalition of Service Industries, who have given us a list of their registered contractors, engineers, and architects. So we will be calling those persons to invite them to the training. I want to encourage anybody involved in the construction industry, particularly the builders and contractors who are going to be out here doing the reconstruction, to come to the trainings with the Engineers Without Borders. Thank you.
Okay, so here you have it, the training interventions. One of the locations that you can get your application forms that Naomi didn't quite mention by oversight was Rudolph Thomas and Sons in Portsmouth. So the forms are available in Portsmouth, as she said, at M&R and Rudolph Thomas, and they're available at varying locations. I should also let you know that much effort has gone into the preparation of these trainings. We've had some level of consultations already with the Dominica Builders and Contractors Association, the Dominica Association of Engineers, Professional Engineers. We've had with the Dominica Architects Association. We've had consultations with the Ministry of Housing and various stakeholders to ensure that the training is very, very instructive and that we can see that the buildings that will go up or the repairs that will be done would be consistent with practice. And we cannot help but emphasize this, that it can't be business as usual in the construction industry. The passage of Hurricane Maria and its impact on our buildings has taught us that. I'm certain that we've all seen the damages. And I'm sure at the end of the briefing, towards the end of the briefing, we will have the press involved with us in giving us some questions that the panelists can respond to. Okay, so at this point in time, I am going to move over to Martin. And Martin is from the Engineers Without Borders, and he's going to be sharing with us a little bit because he's going to be the training facilitator at the various interventions that will be made. So, Martin, welcome on board.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Permanent Secretary. And thank you to the Commonwealth of Dominica and all Dominicans that have welcomed us to this beautiful island. As Madam's Permanent Secretary indicated, I am with Engineers Without Borders. My name is Martin Aquino, and I need to give some credit to other agencies and individuals that worked on this document. I should say that much of the booklet was from the publication from the Informal Housing Retrofit and Safe Construction Pilot Project, which was administered in Dominica by the National Development Foundation of Dominica, with the technical input from Safe Shelter Initiative. And I like to emphasize that we need to give credit to USAID, the Building Code OECS, and OAS. Those agencies have been instrumental in the past, and I think that they should, receive the credit that they deserve. I also would like to give credit to two colleagues from Engineers Without Borders that were here right after the hurricane, Mr. Kevin Hagen and Michael Paddock. They worked hard on this, and they should be back in a couple of weeks to continue the work. So one of our goals is to basically create a standard that will be applied consistently throughout the island to make sure that the construction techniques used will be consistent throughout the different construction sites, be it housing, commercial buildings, or any other type of building, to make sure that we can keep track of what kind of an impact it has in future hurricanes. As you all know, they all vary. They're all not always the same. They come from different directions. So, you know, it is a learning process. It has been just like in earthquakes and other damage type, events. They do vary with the conditions, with the weather conditions, and etc. So again, by having these consistent standards, we can explain to people the reasons why we're using what we're using. It's not just to spend more money or to make them overly, difficult to build, but it's basically to make sure that people understand how everything works together. That, it's not just the roof, but also they gotta work together with the walls and the footing and everything else. Sometimes people think that just by fixing the roof properly, that's gonna take care of the problem, but they forget a lot of times that actually continues to create a bigger problem, because if the walls is not tied to the footing, it's just going to create a bigger problem. So the purpose of the training really is not just to tell them you got to use this type of material, but also explain to them the reasons why we do it this way. And also we want to get feedback from the builders and the homeowners, because they do have the first-hand experience. They lived through it. They built it before. They know the materials that they use. They know the quality, the quantity available. So it's going to be a, two-way type conversation. We need their input. We need their information. And hopefully we can help them build better. Again, we'll try to get into some physical examples of how to do it. We'll try to have materials available. And hopefully, with this training, people will be able to be certified, which is critical, because again, we want to make sure that people that are building know what they are doing and why they are doing it that way. So again, with their help, we hope that this training will help everybody to build better housing in the island. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin, for sharing with us regarding the training. And our discuss would be a bit incomplete if we did not hear from a professional on the local front in terms of what we've been doing and the work that we've put together. So from the Dominica Society of Architects and the entrepreneur for Esprit Ultimate Designs Incorporated, we have Mr. Fred Esprit, a local engineer. He has been engaged with us in crafting the standards that would guide us. So it's not only from the UNDP and the Engineers Without Borders, but we have our local professionals in the field of building construction. And I would like Mr. Esprit to join us at the podium to share with us what his general feedback has been, his own experience with building construction in Dominica, what the storm has taught, and his contribution towards the development of the standards and the training that will be held shortly. Mr. Fred Esprit.
Good morning all. Thank you, Madam PS, for inviting me on the short notice, but I'm very appreciative to be here. And being a part of the training so far, I must say it's very productive, and I know it will make a great impact. As a professional in Dominica, a local professional, our experience, I can say we have the experience, was, as I said, is getting the knowledge out there to the public. And we want to thank you, our partners, and all those who have come on board to help us, the offshore engineers and all the other engineers who have assisted Dominica so far in their inputs, their experience. Since Hurricane David, we have been hearing, as engineers or young engineers, architects, we have been hearing of Hurricane David, but most of us, because of our age group, did not have the experience in terms of the physical impact of the disaster. But a few of us have in other countries. For example, I have had the experience of Hurricane Ivan in Grenada in 2004, being there during the hurricane and working with US PADCO USAID for 3 years in the redevelopment in Grenada. So far, the training is very good, but I would like it to go even further. Apart from the public, we would like to sit and enforce or input the Architects Association, the Engineers Association as well, given the training, because I noticed these are the professionals that will be inputting it in the designs going forward, making sure it's enforced, and even editing some of the designs that have already been practiced. Because what we would want to see is a resilience in not just building, but even in the designing as well. Even in the assessments as well, we'd want to encourage the professionals that are not engineers, that they can do this assessment, but as well have a guide of a professional, trained professional, be an engineer architect that would assist in that assessment. My experience, I would say, have taught me quite a bit, especially in what I see. There's a lot of malpractice or in workmanship, probably not in the codes. Our codes are very good because it's based on Eastern Caribbean Building Code, which is what I use, and plus the code in Dominica and all the guide is based on that same building code. There's always reviews in every 5 years of these codes, which are presently that's what we use. Now, what we would like to see is how you translate these designs that are done by professionals, input it in the practice. For example, I would do so many designs. None of my designs, for example, would have minimum of 24 sheets and majority of details. But when during construction, most homeowners don't even engage you in the other services of, for example, supervision and so forth. So whereas it's left to the contractor to follow. Is he experienced or knowledgeable to even read the plans? So we have to do some of that training as well as we go forth, how we train our builders to read plans and how we even deal, for example, along the sector, the quantity surveyors and all the other persons, because during costing I noticed persons tell the builders or the homeowners, you can have your house cheaper if you use certain things. So what you do, you reduce the materials, the quality of the materials. For example, 24 gauge would be in the code as minimum. You input it in your designs, but probably the supplier is selling 26 gauge. The person doing the costing of that project, they will put the cost for the 26 gauge. Here, then the client would buy the 26 gauge, which is against what they have in the code. So we have to be guided also by all these factors. So we know training. The training, I think, is very good because it really, so far, I have 3 of my clients by just explaining, and they have jumped into by the simple explanation and telling them health and life versus just cost. And then they digested to follow in the codes. For example, some persons wanted to go with the entire roof being concreted. But when we explain the reason with seismic actions, earthquakes, and also we told them then why not go down to do a one-proof room as a hurricane shelter, meaning that one of the rooms, do it at a level that it could have a concrete slab that will not be as costly to do the entire roof. You will put in the measures, meaning columns, beams, and then the other parts of the building retrofitted to suit the mitigations that will be against the effects of the hurricane. So that have been very helpful to date. Also, I would like to see more seminars. Apart from now, I know is the agency, we really would like to see everybody that's re-roofing follow. But we would like even during, after we have been getting back on our foot, that these trainings do not stop, because we have a lot of educating to do across the body, the financial institution and all the others, because if all the other institutions can come on board, that can have a great impact in a way forward. For example, the approval of loans is done by, of the designs are done by physical planning, which does their work. But when it goes from there, it have to be financed by a loan. If the financial institution decide that it have to be stamped and approved by this qualified person, then you might have an impact where they say, okay, well, because I need the funds to do the building, it have to go through the process. So that have been helping. We'd want to see it. From there, we'd like the financial institutions as well to safeguard their asset, because it's an asset if you're going to give a loan, that they themselves have an input of involving engineers or professionals that will also guide and safeguard their interests. So then you'll find is a process from the designer, physical planning, from physical when the financing it, and from the financial institution you have the supervision of these projects, where the client themselves that are trusting these other individuals with the home to construct, they themselves will be guided by someone to see that process is done in the right way. So these are some of my inputs, and I just want to thank Madam PS, the Ministry of Housing, Physical Planning, and Offshore Engineering, and all the others that have been involved in this process, continuing that good job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Esprit, for your contribution to the discussion. I'd like to inform, because some persons have been asking about the building code and asking whether there's going to be a new building code for Dominica. We have consulted extensively on this, and the intention is not to have a new building code, but to review the building code alongside best practice and to be able to make the amendments to the building code. And so once the amendments proposed are approved by government, then we will go on to finalize the building guidelines and the building standards, the housing standards for construction. But in the immediate period, while the intervention is necessary and is urgent, we have proposed to go with the code as is and to adhere to high standards for construction. As Mr. Esprit did say, there is to be the balance between cost and life and safety. And so if we give prominence to the fact that we do not want to spend any more than we spent last time for our house, we may put ourselves at risk if there were to be events of the similar magnitude as Hurricane Maria, or even seismic and other events. So it's very important that we consider and weigh things out properly. I should also inform you that the training intervention being put on by the Ministry of Planning in collaboration with the Ministry of Housing is just one of such initiatives. We have planned consultations where we intend to bring together the various stakeholders in Dominica that will include the banks, the insurance companies, the homeowners, etc., 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 to let us know what were the lessons learned from Hurricane Maria, so we can generate a document that can be used for advising on public policy. We will have public education programs. We will engage the local media houses in public education programs. It is our intention, as feasible, to conduct town hall meetings, to meet with persons at the community level, and to interact with them, to engage them, to speak the language that they understand. By that, I mean speak layman's term to the homeowner that does not understand the technical jargons of construction, and to be able to provide that guidance. And we will have radio infomercials and also extensive replay programs on GIS. So these are some of the initiatives that will be undertaken, not only for the short term, but for the long-term period, to build the kind of Dominica that has been envisioned by and communicated by our Honorable Prime Minister. At this point, we will open to the various media personnel here to propose their questions, to pose their questions to our panelists for responses.
Madam PS, good morning, and thank you for your extensive briefing here this morning. It would seem as if the Inside Issues program, television program that I did on SAT came off at the very wrong time. Notwithstanding that, I didn't realize, I want to get it right, that there is a building code for Dominica. What we are seeking to do now is to improve on what we have going forward in the light of Hurricane Maria. It is quite interesting, though, that the mention was made of the training. I think Mr. Esprit did mention it. What's going to be happening, Mr. Esprit? Because we are looking at cost factor here. It would seem as if we have a new version of what's going to be happening and going forward. Is your professional organization going to be offering advice, and at what cost? Because I am going to build my house and I need you to give me some direct information. And that direct information has to come about where I am looking to mitigate on my cost as well. So I don't want your professional organization to tell me that in order for me to get the service, I've got to pay extra for it. And the bank is only prepared to give me $250,000 to build my house. Explain that to me a little bit and provide some assurance that as less as possible a cost will be incurred to the person or persons who are preparing to and who have prepared and who have built their houses and whatever it is and doing some more reconstruction.
I will start with the part of the cost or the engagement with the individual going through. I don't think there should be an increase in the professional fee, because if you're already an engineer and architect and you claim to have been practicing what the code said, so why now then you should increase the cost? It should be now what we should be doing to help our country come back to it with our professional entities and partners to even be on the international world. Now I think is a time to even showcase our good work here. So then what we need to do is assist the Ministry of Housing, Physical Plan, and even going out there in the society and trying to sell this information to them, all right? Because, for example, what I have been doing is trying to educate my clients before we even enter into the design aspect. And we discuss financial implementation. For example, you have to be able to meet your budget, your financial need. There are differences between, you cannot compromise the structural integrity. As an architect, I love to see a building aesthetics, but I always put myself back and I tell them, whereas you could work and up or lower the aesthetics, but you should not interfere with the structural integrity of the building. So if the beam gonna be 12 by 14, then we have to respect that's what it's gonna be. If then I want to put glass or timber, then we can make, because for the non-structural components, then we can make a decision. I can choose to put a glass window or to put a timber door. But when it comes to the structural, so if I encourage and then moving forward, I would like to see how we each professional sit with the clients and you explain, because you should be representing the client. You should be the one helping them to make sure there is functionality in what you do, and there is a so economical part to it. I believe in economical designing. You have to be able to design to meet your budget. At the same time, there are things that you can't compromise, as we said before, the structural integrity. But there are the things we can do. We want to let our Dominican clients know that we're there for them, and we ourselves as a society will be letting our association, or members in the association, I am being a part of the executive of the Architects Association, we'll be having our own discussion or training, how we can help our country, how we can help work with the government, how we can work with the different individuals, society. Because what you don't want to do is to let people think our code was not functioning. The code was good, as I said, we were doing what it said. But it's how we take it from the design aspect to the implementational part. Even though we have to have seminars before suppliers, I have tried it, but you, an individual on their own, can have it, make it work. The supply is also looking at the interest in terms of profits and loss. If I'm going to bring a quality material, let's say like stainless steel, which is what's recommended for the coastal areas, it's going to cost 2 or 3 times the amount by just bringing a galvanized coated plate. Whereas the plate is cheaper than the zinc. So what you'd find, if the supplier brings in the hurricane strap, that was before Hurricane Maria, you'd find it would have remained on the shelf where the cheaper version would have sold out. We have to now draw the line between what do we really need, because economical designing does not mean is paying the cheaper dollar. It meaning that you're gonna spend less in the next 5 years. So if I would put one hurricane strap with a stainless steel, that would last for 12 years, against putting one hurricane strap that would cost $3.50. You think, most persons think economical here mean I spend less to purchase it, but they're not realizing you'd have to replace it every year, every 6 months. And if you have a hurricane within that period, then you're compromising that structure. So a lot of these are the things we have to do to assist our individual or different clients in the way forward. I don't know if I...
Yes, Julian Morris, Channel 5 News. Before you leave, hold on still. And I'm not sure if Mr. Martin would want to weigh in as well. But what I want to ask is this, is that I know the UNDP is doing this training going on, and then you guys are also doing some sort of training. The UNDP doing data collection to inform policy on housing and so on. I'm wondering, as contractors or builders are being trained now, what exactly is it that they're brushing up on? And is there some synergy with the data? To what extent does that training reflect what is being collected, the data that's being collected, which I suspect is not complete yet? So are you guys concerned that you might have to retrain down the road, and is that just a normal thing that we expect to retrain down the road?
I will let Madam PS talk more about the training, but I can tell you about the training in the way forward. There will be shown need of training forward. Right now, what we are doing, or what the ministry is doing, is very important, because you have to start at a point. You have to know what's existing, what's there, so you can use it as data to study what can you do better. If you realize some of the roofs, our majority have no collar tie. Some persons don't even know what I mean when I say a collar tie. It's just a system of reinforce, a simple just tying a piece of timber with bolts and so forth would reinforce that connector. So it have a lot of things that with that data now, it will help, and to even give that sense of comfort to the public, general public. Because one thing to tell somebody, put a hurricane shutter in your double front door, the double door, but if you cannot explain to them why I'm telling you to do that, but if you can now tell them, based on the 80 houses we have inspected, 70 of them, because of double doors with doubt, have flown away. And 20 of those we have noticed with shutters have remained. This is already a selling or the information you're trying to get. Moving forward, yes, there will be the need for training. There might be needs for to reviewing certain policies. For example, you don't want to do things that are too robust. At the same time, you have to do it to guide our codes and the way forward, to guide or to protect the public, the safety. What I mean for training, for example, as I said, there should be certification for contractors, and they can be done in different levels, because we want everybody to be employed, everybody to have a living. But if we do certification at levels, there are specialties that you need different contractors that have experience, that have the knowledge in doing installation of certain. So then from that listing, you can just tap in and then you have a pre-qualified contractors list, for example. If this could exist in every entity, every organization, it's easier for persons to pick the right persons or with the skills to do the job. So then, if these are all certain things that will go along and assist with the training in the future, because you want to train individuals that know it's not just the skill, but they have it. I think this program has started with the Builders Contractors Association, the CVQ, which is done by the Institution of Trinidad, have been doing the certification. We want more of the contractors to come in. It's a benefit to you. It's a plus. You have a certificate to prove that you have done certain things. So these are all some of the things we can do in the way forward.
codes for a long time.
Yes.
We've heard engineers say that the building code that we have now, it provides for only minimum standards.
Yes.
We saw what this Category 5 did.
Yes.
So what are we preparing for? For example, when you train contractors and builders, let's say, category hurricane you're preparing for? In terms of, okay, we're putting this building together.
Yes.
We're not just throwing pieces together,
Right.
but this will withstand Category 5 or something, or Category 4, what have you. Are we thinking in those terms, or are we also thinking not just the roof and everything, but we're preparing for seismic events as well? So is all of that forming part of the training? Because my concern really is the work that, from what I heard the gentleman say of the UNDP, it seems this is very important what they're doing. The assessments and the data which they will need. So what my concern is that on one hand we're training people in the absence of the complete data collection on this side, the UNDP. So I'm not sure if I'm missing something. Somebody will have to explain to me if I'm missing something here, but I would want to think that we would want to let the policy inform whatever it is we're doing. I'm logically thinking of it in those terms. I'm not sure how you're looking at it.
Okay. Very, very insightful questions, very brain-teasing questions, Mr. Morris. But I think to some extent, Mr. Esprit has responded. The training that is now ongoing by Mr. Phillips of the college in Barbados, organized by the Ministry of Housing, is also a very good training. It's an intervention, an immediate intervention, because, people are wanting to know. They need to know what to do. So from the college level, from the best practice, he's having that intervention with persons across the board. The training that we're doing is an integrated and coordinated type training. So it's not divorced. It's not two totally different types of training. The difference at our level is that we're providing from the government some level of certification to say, based on the standards, and the standards, as I mentioned very earlier on, the standards are informed from our framework, which is the Physical Planning Act of 2002. The building code, the current building code that is in review, all right? The building guidelines, we've always had building guidelines. And from that, we will derive some form of standards. The standards will be very instructive, both on the construction side and also on the supply, demand and supply side, so that the hardware dealers, the lumberyards and so on, can have a recommended list of supplies, as Mr. Estri was saying, that they could purchase. However, whatever standards we put forward the minimum. I think at our last press briefing, the question came up on what category storm are we preparing for, seeing that Hurricane Maria was a Category 5. I'm not an authority on the subject, but what I have learned is that Category 5 can go from wind speed of 200 miles per hour to up to 500 miles per hour. So there's a wide gap. The fact is we need to be better prepared. That's what we're zeroing on. We cannot be immune, but we can be better prepared. We can't prevent a storm from coming, but we can, by good practice, we can reduce the impact that would return to us damage and loss. So if we can reduce the impact from damage and loss, we would put ourselves at a more sustainable level as a country to move from maybe an underdeveloped stage to a developing, to some years to come, a developed country. So the training will be informed by the data, but even from an observation standpoint, without conducting the surveys, I think persons at the grassroots level, if you were to interview them as the media, they can tell you what was wrong. A lot of them may be correct in telling you, okay, I know my rafters were weak. I know this was that. I know the galvanized I had was maybe tin foil. I know. So people can tell you just from their experiences and observation, but certainly our decisions and policies would have to be based on data. All right? Martin, would you like to say anything, add anything to the response? Yes, you're welcome to join. And you can just stay with us up here.
Okay. So there were many thoughts about it, but I think going back to the standards, and you're right, the code is the minimum. It doesn't mean that you cannot build better, but that is your minimum level. But again, consistency is what we're looking for, and certification will provide that, because if you're a homeowner and a contractor comes to you and says, well, I can build your house better if I do this, but then you have another contractor that says to you, yeah, I can do the same, but I'm certified by the ministry. That gives you some sense of comfort that at least this person is going through training than somebody else who knows what experience that contractor may have. So I think that really what the training is going to provide, a sense of comfort that you may be dealing with people that are knowledgeable in what they have to do.
I want to play devil's advocate here, because we're talking of codes and we're talking of standards. So what happens then if I decide to get someone, probably who is not certified, to build my house for me? How am I, even in light of the fact that the person isn't certified, who guides the framework of what is it I am going to do, or what is it I want to do in terms of building and building properly? Is the Ministry of Housing going to take up the slack and say, all right, look, or the planning division, for instance, I've gone to them, I've got my plans approved, whatever it is. Are they going to be seeing to it that the minimum standards are kept, even if I do not have a certified contractor, that sort of thing? I want to be able to feel comfortable in that zone.
Very, very good question as well. The physical planning division continues to operate under its mandate. Not only, as I alluded to very early in the discussion, not only to approving construction permits, but inspection. And we know there's a heightened need for more inspection, more robust inspections going on. So whereas a person intending to build has a right to select whoever their contractor is, whoever their builder is, we cannot legislate that. The power of choice is there. But we will continue to do our work in approving plans that meet the standards and also inspecting buildings while under construction, right? So it may mean reinforcement of our human resource capacity to do it, but the government stands ready to ensure that Dominica is a climate resilient country, as has been communicated in the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister that we all embrace as our vision for the country. I hope that answers.
Okay, certainly. And Ms.
Yes.
Dorrivel, you spoke of the training, the two-day training sessions that are going to be having. I have noticed that no mention was made of invite to the general public. Can the general public peep in, as if I may use that term, or get some view as to what you're doing at the training? Because when the guys are going to be in my area, I want to be able to come in. I'm not a builder, I'm not a contractor, I'm not whatever it is, but I want to be able to come in for my own edification, to be able to get a feel and a sense of what's happening there, and to be able to guide myself in the process going forward.
Okay, the training was initially catering to the contractors and the builders, because those are the people that actually going to be doing the construction. So we want them, and we are... I'm like peeping Tom. I understand that, but we have to deal with the logistics of classroom size. So we do not want a peeping Tom and then a contractor misses a very vital lesson. So we'll have consultations, and we have to register. So once if there is space based on the registration, then the peeping Tom is welcome. But we have to deal with the classroom size and the contractors. They are our focus group, the builders and contractors.
Are you going to ensure, though, that all the not the builders, but the suppliers, are you going to ensure that all the suppliers are part and parcel of whatever training exercise you're going to be doing? Because I want to know that if I go to, just to mention it here, E.H. Charles, for instance, for building materials, I can get the same, and I don't get the quality that I'm looking for. I can go somewhere else and get the quality that I'm looking for. So all the suppliers will have one code or whatever it is they want to operate on and getting the material that I need to build.
Well, the suppliers have actually been very eager. They are eager to have the list of suggested materials or recommended materials. So they are in bed with us. They are working with us on that.
Okay. All right. We have to bring the discussion to a close. We are constrained by time. It has been a very interesting discourse right here in the press briefing room, and I would hope to, in the listening audience, you've had a good time interacting, albeit one-sided, with us. But we invite your questions, your comments. You may send me an email at psplanning@dominica.gov.dm. And I will ensure that the technical experts are available to respond to your questions, and also we will take your comments on board as we continue the drive to educate, to inform, to sensitize Dominica. I will just say one thing in closing, in that it is part of the training plan to construct model roofs at 2 of our training locations. For now, it will be at the site of the Physical Planning Division on Goodwill Road. Right to the entrance of the division, we will construct 2 model roofs. That's a hipped roof and a gable roof. And we will do similar in Portsmouth, so that persons from the public don't think that you're going to be deprived. You will be able to go there and see the roof and look at it, and you will be educated that way. And with all our public education programs, no one will be left out, no one left behind in this move. This has been your daily press briefing. It has been a pleasure to have you both in the listening audience and in person, and thank you for viewing.